Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of the DC Capstone Report. It's great to have everybody back this week for another podcast on Alabama football. I want to thank Lance Shores, the one who is in the studio making all of this happen. Thank you for your great production he's done all season. Another great podcast this week as we're going to discuss our upcoming game against the Auburn Tigers. Today in the podcast, on the first segment, we're going to take and review the game against the Chattanooga Moccasins. In the second segment, we're going to talk about our players of the game of the Chattanooga game. In our third and final segment, we're going to preview the upcoming game against the Auburn Tigers. You're listening to the DC Capstone Report. The DC Capstone Report is featured each Tuesday morning on the Martin Houston Show at Tide 100.9. You can listen live at Tide100.9.com. Well, welcome back to the podcast. This week on our first segment, let's review that game we just had against the Chattanooga Moccasins. Glad to have everyone here. I want to thank Lance Shores with RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. If you wanted to see some great pictures from last week's game, go check them out. I've already seen them. I've shared them on our page. Lance did a great job taking some great pictures. So if you've got people in the $1 Million Band, cheerleaders, the Crimson Nets, the football team, and you want to get some good pictures, go to RollTideBama.com or FreelancePictures.com for some great Alabama content. Well, this week on the podcast is our first segment. We're going to take a look at the review against the Chattanooga Moccasins. I had predicted 52-21, and Alabama showed up and played a complete game and won this game going away 66-10. A 66-point offense holding them to 10 points. Thought our defense did play great in this game with the one lapse, and that is the long run for the touchdown, 70-something yards, got them in position for a touchdown. But just an opportunity for Alabama to learn from that mistake. But overall, I think the defense played really well other than that. On the offensive side of the ball, we played a lot of players, and Jalen Milroe played the first half. He did a really good job of when he was in there. At one point, I think he was 10 of 10. He ended up 13 of 16 for 197 yards and 3 touchdowns before he took the second half off and gave it over to Ty Simpson. So we ran a large stable of running backs. We were able to see multiple running backs get the ball in this game, and they all did really well. I was very pleased with the offensive line play again. Not too many penalties in this game. The only thing I saw on the offensive side, or only on the special team side, was Kool-Aid McKinstry again making some bad mistakes in the punt return. He fair caught a ball that he should have returned, and then he muffed a punt and fumbled a punt that he should not have fumbled that we finally got back. But we can't have that kind of play. Really was impressed with Caleb Downs when he came in as the punt returner. He caught the ball, even if it looked a little rusty at times. He caught the ball, and then when he had the one opportunity for the middle return, did a great job and took it to the house for 6. So interesting to see what's going to happen this week. Will Kool-Aid McKinstry be fielding punts, or would it be Caleb Downs? I believe with all the different types of punters we have in the SEC, it's hard to field punts. I know that, but if it's your job, you ought to be able to do it. And I look forward to seeing who they run out there this week to field the punts against Auburn. But overall, a great win against the Chattanooga Moccasins. Everybody says, well, they're just a blowout with a game. They paid someone. Well, they paid someone to come in, I think, to play this game, an FCS team. But this FCS team is probably going to make the playoffs. They had only lost 3 games prior to that, 2 against the number 1 and 2 team in their league. And it only lost them by a couple of touchdowns. So I thought it was really good of Alabama team to go out there and not be complacent and play well enough to blow them out in this game 66-10. Well, welcome back on the podcast. Here in our second segment, we're going to take a look at our players of the game against Chattanooga. But before we do that, I want to thank our sponsors out there. Always RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com. But also the sponsor that allows us to be on here each and every week. That's Karen Cottingham, Realtor, with the Keller Williams Group here, with the Williams Group at Keller Williams. They're right here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You can reach her at 205-887-4008 for all your real estate needs. If you want to take a look at Karen's inventory, out there on the listing service at the website at www.karen.thewilliamsgroupal.com. Go on there and check out some of the things. If you want to buy that condo, if you want to sell your house, if you want to sell your property, a business property, whatever it may be, you check out Karen Cottingham here at the Williams Group at Keller Williams. Again, it's 205-887-4008. We want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for checking out our sponsors, and we really appreciate all that you do for those on our sites. Going to RollTideBama.com, going to freelancepictures.com, and all, using our sponsors. So thank you for your feedback on that. Well, here on the second segment, we're going to take a look at our players of the game, and I got a multitude of people to choose from in this game on offense, but I chose two players I thought did a really good job, and one is Jermaine Burton. Jermaine Burton had been out the previous week, been sick, wasn't feeling well. He got some good rest this week, and he came back with a stellar game. He had 3 receptions for 105 yards, all in the first half, maybe all in the first quarter. He had a touchdown, so 1 touchdown receiving. 3 receptions, 105 yards, 1 touchdown. Just thought Jermaine Burton did a good job. Hope he's really up on his game as he goes into this next week's game against Auburn. This week's game against Auburn, I think he'll be a big asset to Jalen Milroe about getting open downfield. The second player of the game is someone you may not be expecting, but I think Jamarian Miller had a really good game in this game. He had 6 carries for 77 yards for an average of 12.8 yards per carry. 12.8 yards per carry. I think all season, Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, and then you see Jamarian Miller. I think he has really came on the most of all the running backs in this season. Most probably improved, I would say, of the running backs in his blocking ability, picking up the blitzes, and also being able to hit the holes, those jump cuts, and getting outside and showing some of his speed. He was able to do that in this game. So my offensive players of the game against Chattanooga are Jermaine Burton and Jamarian Miller. On defense, another guy that you probably didn't expect, but he got the start in this game due to the injury to Deontay Lawson, and that's Jihad Campbell. Jihad Campbell played a stellar game. He had 10 tackles. In the 10 total tackles this game, he had 6 tackles and 4 assists. So really did a good job of defending the pass play. He had pass deflection. He had breakups. Really did a good job of stopping the run. He was all over the field. So I really think Jihad Campbell has really improved himself this year as well. And it's really good to have him there in case Deontay Lawson or maybe Treston Marshall might go out. Both of them had injuries this year. So my other player of the game on defense has to be Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs had a total of 7 tackles. He had 2 solo tackles, 5 assists, and he had multiple pass breakups, multiple passes defended, and had that long touchdown run for on a punt return when he came in and took over for Kool-Aid McKinstry. So Caleb Downs, being a freshman, is not playing like a freshman. Everybody's talking about that he's got that star quality about him, and he's done nothing to disappoint this year. So my players of the game on defense are Jihad Campbell and Caleb Downs. My players on the game on offense are Jermaine Burton and Jam Miller, and Jihad Campbell and Caleb Downs on defense. Well, welcome back to the third and final segment here on the DC Capstone Report. It's great to see have everybody back with us. Alabama has gone through this gauntlet of a schedule, and they're 10-1. The only lone blemish on the record is the game against Texas, and that's what people are talking about. That may come back to haunt them in the college football playoff hunt, but we can't talk about that now because that's down the road. The next game on the schedule is the Auburn Tigers, the Iron Bowl, the epitome of rivalries. I would say the most nastiest and the best rivalry in the country. It's just one of those things where people, if you're not an Alabama or Auburn fan, you don't understand. I think it all goes back history-wise. As many of you know out there, I was one of the people who helped Emily Moore get the Bryant Museum started before there ever was a building. We collected much great memorabilia. And in that, we saw a lot of emphasis placed on the Alabama-Auburn game. 2 reasons for that, I believe. One is Alabama doesn't have any sports affiliations with any professional teams. We all have college teams. The 2 biggest college teams in Alabama was the University of Alabama and Auburn University. And pretty much you got to choose. So in whatever family you're in, you get to choose either pick one, Alabama or Auburn, and that's who you root for. So that's one thing that gives credence to the rivalry. But I think also Bear Bryant and Shug Jordan ratcheted that to a different level when they came in and took over as far as some heated barbs back and forth, and you began to see the Auburn, Alabama jokes that happened at that. But the one thing I point to in all the memorabilia people were talking about was Coach Bear Bryant's statement that when asked the question, and it became fodder for everybody, he liked beating Notre Dame. He said, well, I like beating Notre Dame, but you have to dominate, you have to win. Nothing gives you more satisfaction than beating that, and he said, Cal College across the state. And that started the vehement dislike for, I believe, the teams. And Bear Bryant did some good things. Shug Jordan did some good things from Auburn, and then it just kept rolling from there, where it went back and forth, back and forth. And here lately, Coach Saban has had good success against the Auburn Tigers, but not as much success in Auburn that he would like to have. So this game sets up to be that rivalry game. Both teams coming off of completely different game. Alabama blows out a team they paid to come in and play them in Chattanooga 66-10, and Auburn loses, gives up 31 points to a team that they paid $1.8 million to come in and play them, New Mexico State. So I don't think that bodes well for Alabama in this game, because I think you got to fight against the external factors. But if Alabama can do that and put that out of their mind, I think number one thing in the Alabama-Auburn game, when you play in Jordan-Hare Stadium, something happens there. It's just different. You never know what some of the crazy things. We will hear multiple times about the kick six that happened down there. We'll hear about last year how we barely were able to beat them with Bryce Young in the closing seconds, and we're talking about all the prayer at Jordan-Hare where they beat Georgia on a fluke tip pass. And all things seem to happen down there, so anything can happen in this game. And on paper, it looked like Alabama is the better team, but they don't play on paper. They play on the turf, and Alabama's got to guard against being complacent. So my number one thing for this game is Alabama needs to start fast and guard about being complacent. They can't be complacent in this game. For Alabama, it's the next game on the schedule, and they have to win it. And I believe they have to win it convincingly if they want to continue to build a resume for at least give people to talk about in the playoff. They have to win this game, and they have to win the next game to even be in the conversation. So this is the next game on the schedule. They can't be complacent. They have to go in and start fast. I believe they have to run the ball, and I think they have to work in QB run. So our offensive line is going to have a really good opportunity. Auburn has a good defense, and I'll speak to that in just a little while. They have a pretty good defense. I think they can put up some challenges in the running game, stop the run, but we're going to have to run the ball in this, and I think we got to work in some QB runs. I was very critical on Tommy Rees early in the season, but I think I have to give credit when credit's due. Tommy Rees has done a really good job lately of making some calls, and I think he needs to improve even in this game to even do some better play calling to get his players in the best position. And I think we need to use at least 3 running backs in this. I think Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, and Jamarian Miller all bring something different slightly to the running game. And I think that we have a stable running backs to run. So our offensive line imposing their will on the Auburn defensive front and allow to open some holes, run the ball, and work in some QB runs so that the quarterback's not accounted for. And I think he can get some chunk plays in this. By doing that, I think we're going to set up a great passing day for Jalen Milroe. He has been on fire of late. He's done really good. He's improved in his passing. I think that we can run the ball in this game to set up some play-action passing that he'll get some shots down the field that can really make some explosive plays. So on offense, we got to limit our mistakes and penalties, which we haven't done much of that lately. We got to continue to do that, keep our head about us, and go in here and play them. I expect the Auburn defense to play and us to get their best game. I think they'll be motivated after coming off of that loss, giving up 31 points to New Mexico State. I think they'll be motivated to come in this rivalry game and show what they are at their home field. And I look for them to play it hard. I said something this morning to one of my friends. I said, I think Auburn will play like the Pittsburgh Steelers when they play us at Jordan-Hare Stadium. I think we get their best game, so I think that we'll get that in this game. So we've got to do our job on offense to take advantage of what they give us and make sure that we're not pushing, not too stiff. Play open enough to not be complacent and take advantage of what they give us. And if Jalen Milroe can do that, if we can limit our mistakes, no interceptions, no fumbles, and we run the ball in order to set up the pass, I think we can impose our will on this Auburn team. I think that in the fourth quarter we can really impose our will on them if we were able to do that and weather the storm that comes with the momentum of playing at Jordan-Hare. On defense, I believe we got to stop the run. Auburn runs the ball really well, and I think they lean on the run. We've got to stop it. We can't make any mistakes or breakdowns on defense that would cause us to give gap problems. We got to be gap sound. By that I mean we got to cover our A gap, B gap, C gap. There has to be everything covered here so that there's no explosive plays on the offense side of the ball for Auburn. I believe if we can do that and play gap sound and put them in a position of where they have to throw the ball, then I think we got to pressure their quarterback, whichever one plays, either Peyton Thorne or Robbie Ashford. We got to pressure their quarterback in passing situations. If we can get them in third and long and put them in passing situations, I believe our defense can hold up against that and get off the field. So stop the run. Don't make any mistakes that allows them to gash us in open plays, and put them in passing situations. And then our objective is to get off the field on third down. And that is play good, sound coverage, no penalties. Don't give them anything. And finally, seize the momentum on defense. Momentum on defense can really, if we can hold them and not have any busted coverages and not be complacent like we did against Chattanooga, learn from that one drive mistake and don't allow them to gash us or have a big play. Don't give them any momentum. They won't need any. They'll have plenty of momentum with the crowd there at Jordan-Hare. So on defense, we got to be a momentum buster. We got to take away their momentum. We got to establish ourselves on defense. And I believe if we do that, we'll come away with this in a victory. I was talking to one of our listeners out there. We have a lot of great listeners. I give a shout out to Curtis Moore. He's one of our longtime listeners. He always gets some great observations about what the game is going to be. We've got other listeners that are new to us, like Brian Gurley. He's a listener that is new to this, but he always has some great observations. And Cody Short, another guy who is new to this, just found out we had this podcast and he started listening a couple of weeks ago. All those have great observations. But one of our longtime listeners is a man there that's located in Woodstock, Georgia. His name is Brad Logan, and Brad always gives me a good observation. So this week he said that on paper this game should be a 2+ score victory for Alabama. He thinks Milroe is on fire and running the ball. It's come to life, and his passing game is doing good. And when you look at the Auburn's defense, they should have a much better record because their defense is so good. So we can't be complacent in this game. I believe what he says here about the Bama defense is correct. We have an elite Alabama defense. And if we play that way and don't look forward to the next game, if we play this game and we play elite level as this Alabama defense is, then he thinks that Auburn and Alabama game is going to come down. Alabama's going to cover that 2-score game. And I believe the same thing. I think Alabama wins this game. And I want to thank Brad for always sending me his observations, and I'd love all of our listeners to do that. Comment on our podcast with your observations, so I can use you on some of our podcasts down the road. But I agree with him. If Alabama's defense plays to that elite level, if they play up to that elite level that we are so used to seeing, then I think this is definitely more than a 2-score game, and Alabama wins it. So I believe that's what we're going to do. We're going to come out and play good on the offense, start fast. We're not going to be complacent. We're going to come out and play good on defense and be a momentum buster. I believe this game can go one or two ways. We come out flat and complacent and let Auburn stay in the game, then it's going to be tight all the way down to the very end. Or if we come out and play fast, start fast, stop Auburn and bust their momentum and take over the win and never give it back, then I think Alabama can win this one going away. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think Alabama comes out, plays one of their best games on the field at Auburn. It's going to be looked at as a game where we come out and play a complete game and do a good job. And I believe Alabama comes away with victory over the Auburn Tigers in this Iron Bowl. I believe the final score is going to be Alabama 45, Auburn 24. Well, that's the podcast this week here on the DC Capstone Report. Thank you for all tuning in. I want to thank our listeners out there that many I've called out today, but all the ones I didn't that continue to listen. You're what makes this podcast keep going. And also our sponsors, RollTideBama.com and FreelancePictures.com, and Karen Cottingham Realtor with the Williams Group right here at Keller Williams in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You can reach her at 205-887-4008. Well, for Lance Shores, for DC, this is DC with the Capstone Report, signing off this week with a big Roll Tide.